All right, I am definitely happy to be out here filming today. This is actually the second time that I've attempted to film this video. The first time was, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. We were in a bit of a snowstorm. I got up here and there must have been like 2 feet of snow on the ground, which normally not a huge deal. I'm usually prepared for that stuff. The thing is though, when the weather's like that, this area where I do most of my filming and shooting, it seems like everybody with a snowmobile within about a 50-mile radius comes up here and uses this as a staging point. They park their trucks, they drop their snowmobiles, they get ready, and then they head off to the trail system to enjoy their day. As you can imagine, between the level of noise, the distraction, the commotion out here, the end product of that video just didn't quite fit my standard level. So I went ahead and scrapped it and we're back out here filming today. For those of you that don't already know, I'm Mike, this is 360 Tactical Solutions. And today we're going to talk about transitioning from iron sights over to a red dot system. Now I totally realize that probably the vast majority of my regular viewers at some point or other have already made that transition, but this video is pretty important to me to make for the entire 2A community. Sighting systems on weapons are an ever evolving and changing thing, and it seems like the industry as a whole is moving more and more towards red dots being the primary sighting system for handguns. A lot of you already know that I'm incredibly active online, whether it's different forums or gun groups or Reddit or whatever the case may be. I'm out there all the time having discussions with people about these things, and a lot of times when the discussion of red dots comes up, there are a lot of people that chime in with, bad experiences or negative outlooks on red dots that tend to be based more on, information or products from 10 or 12 years ago versus what's actually available on the market right now. Those objections that I tend to see, also a lot of them stem from kind of a deficiency or lack of training. So today I want to go over some of those objections, and I want to talk about why most of those don't really apply today or can be worked through proper training. And then we're going to talk about a couple of ways that I feel are the best way to transition into a red dot or, learn to use your red dot better. If at any point in this video you want to be part of the conversation, if you have some tips, some tricks, if you don't agree, whatever the case may be, feel free to drop down in the comment section, leave a comment, hit the like button, and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, let's get started. The first one I want to start with is speed, and I see this objection a lot. People will say, red dots are slower than iron sights. I am so much faster with iron sights than I am with a red dot. Now let me preface this by saying that I am not at all saying that you can't be fast with iron sights. People have been using iron sights for a very long time, and if you train hard enough and frequently enough, you can become fairly quick with iron sights. But when you talk about iron sights being faster than a red dot, what that tells me is that, number one, you're not training properly, you're not training enough. Number two, you probably don't necessarily fully understand how to use a red dot versus iron sights. These two sighting systems, iron sights and micro red dots, they are not the same. They don't function the same. You don't use this the same way that you use this. So if you've been using iron sights for any length of time, if you're at all proficient with iron sights, and then you pick up a red dot system and you try to use that the same way that you would your iron sights, it is going to be slower. It's going to be slower because you have to use it differently than you do your iron sights. Iron sights are a multifocal plane sighting system, which means that the human eye has to change its focus point several times in the course of actually lining these sights up to be able to take your shot. Now the argument is This happens extremely quickly. It's a blink of an eye. That time doesn't matter. The thing is though, is your brain has to communicate with your eyeball, which has to communicate with your hands. You have to focus on your target or threat. I have to be really careful how I word things because YouTube. You have to focus on that target, at which point you have to make sure that your front sight is lined up to that target where you want to shoot. Your eyeball has to change its focus to the rear sight to make sure that the rear sight is lined up with the front sight, back to the front sight to make sure that it is lined up with the target, at which point you pull the trigger, it goes bang. These are the steps involved in actually using iron sights. Like I said, over time and training, you can become quite proficient, and this can seem to be very fast and seamless, but these processes still need to happen in order to work that sighting system. When you look at a red dot though, this is a single focal plane sighting system. So your actual focus never changes. When using a red dot, I keep both eyes open. I keep my focus on the target or threat. I then bring the weapon up so that the dot is transposed over the target where I want the bullet to go, and I pull the trigger. At no point am I looking or focusing from the target to the gun or the body of the optic. It is a simple routine of bringing that weapon up so that the dot is transposed over the target and then pulling the trigger. Now, I am no mathematician. In fact, I'm terrible at math. I really am. But even I know that if you have process A that takes 4 steps and you have process B that takes 1 step is faster than 4. It is especially faster if you take the time and put in the effort to training to make it faster. The argument about speed also ties into a secondary issue that I hear people mention all the time. Usually this is people who have been using red dot for a little while, but you know, they really haven't put the time into training like they should. And that is, you know, I am slower with this red dot because I have a hard time finding the dot. I have to make adjustments to be able to find that dot. I'm searching for the dot. What that is just a lack of training. Trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to get sick of hearing about how every issue with red dots boils down to you not training enough. Using a red dot is, in my mind, essentially based on building up muscle memory. The only way to build up muscle memory is to do a process over and over and over again, while also critiquing that process to where you're getting better, because you can't just do the same action over and over and over again and get better. You have to actually have some sort of metric to go by to know that you're getting better. If you're searching for the dot, that means that when you bring your weapon up and present it, you haven't done that process enough to really have that gun just go where it needs to be. Now, if you train right, what'll happen is you will draw that weapon, you'll present it, and that dot will be right on target, basically where you want it to be. There is no focusing back and forth. There is no searching for the dot, trying to line it up. It's just going to be there. Now, muscle memory is key. And another thing that I see come up quite often, which is the topic of co-witness. Now, I'm going to say something here that's going to be pretty controversial. I'm sure you guys are going to flood the comment section about this, but co-witness is bullshit. Okay, maybe not BS, but co-witness is not as important as people think that it is. The idea is that you want to be able to see enough of your iron sights through the window of your optic that when your optic goes down, you'll be able to switch back to those irons as your backup sighting system. That creates a couple of problems. You're starting out with the kind of expectation that at some point this dot is going to fail you and you're going to have to, at a split second, swap back to those iron sights to use those to line up your shot. This is what I like to call a self-fulfilling prophecy of doom. Most of the time, when somebody is looking for that perfect co-witness, what they end up doing is they sacrifice quality of their optic system in order to get that perfect co-witness. At some point down the road, because you compromised on the quality of your red dot, what's going to happen is that dot is going to go down, and that is just going to reaffirm your notion that red dot systems are not great and that you need to co-witness those iron sights. So you're literally creating the situation that you're hoping to avoid by buying something that down the road is going to not work properly. This is going to leave a bad taste in your mouth over red dots, and chances are when somebody says something about using a red dot, you're going to have something negative to say about it. On this gun here, the LFA Apollo 11, I've got the Holosun EPS carry. It's a pretty stout optic. It's put up with a fair amount of abuse, and as far as drop testing goes, it has passed with flying colors through, multiple people who enjoy dropping their guns on cement. I don't enjoy doing that, but other people do. If you have a question about durability with a red dot, my suggestion is go check out the Sage Dynamics channel. He does a great job of drop testing things, and you would be surprised at how much abuse these guys can actually take. Durability comes up a lot when people talk about needing that co-witness. The dot's going to break. Well, buy a durable red dot. Most of the mid-level and above optics are going to be durable. The other objection tied into that co-witness topic is battery life. Well, you know what? Battery life on today's dots versus dots from 12 years ago is considerably better. Legitimately, it is counted in the range of 50,000 hours for most red dots. That's several years. So if that's an issue, maintain your equipment properly. Change your battery every other year. It's not that hard. There's a little screw here that you take out, you pop out the tray, you put in a new battery every 2 years. It's not a big deal. Some of the Holosun brand actually have a solar panel built in as a backup, just in case that battery does go down. So all of these preconceived notions about your dot going down, they don't really make sense anymore, because the industry with optics has advanced so much, just literally within the last 5 years. These optics today are not the same optics from a decade ago. The other thing that you really have to realize is that in the instance that this does go down, let's say for whatever reason the battery that I put in here was substandard, and I am in a life or death situation and I actually have to use this gun. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to draw my weapon. I'm going to present it on target. I'm going to be like, damn, my dot's not working. Then my brain is going to have to stutter for a split second to go back to using iron sights. Again, we're going from a single focal plane sighting system back to a multifocal plane sighting system. So then my brain has to look at the target, refocus back to the front sight to make sure that it's on target, back to the rear sight to make sure that it's lined up with the front sight, back to the target, and then bang. That extra time, that little bit of hesitation that is bound to happen, could make the difference between you having a good day and you having a bad day. That brings us back to the topic of muscle memory. Everything is dependent on muscle memory. The reality is, if you train with this red dot well enough, when you present it on target, it's already going to be more or less where it's supposed to be. If that dot goes down, you are going to be able to point shoot well enough to work your way out of a bad situation. Feel free to chime in down below, but that's the reality of things. If you draw your weapon in a bad situation, statistically speaking, it's going to be at a close enough range that your point shooting is going to be accurate enough to get you through it. It's also going to be faster to do that than it is, you know, for your brain to switch back over to using those iron sights. Personally, when I am out training, what I will do is I'll run a couple boxes of ammo through my gun using my dot, and then before I leave for the day, what I'll do is I'll open up that battery tray, I will remove the battery, and then I will go ahead, draw from the holster, present to target, and I won't try to line it up. I will just push it out there and take a shot. What I've found through my testing and through my training is that I am accurate enough doing that because I built up the muscle memory through my regular training. Now, sure, I'm not taking precision shots at 50 plus yards, but really, that's not what's going to happen in a self-defense scenario if your dot goes down. It's a falsehood that doesn't exist. Now, I'm not at all saying that iron sights don't have a place or that you shouldn't, think about the thought of co-witness. I'm just saying that focusing on your backup sights being visible through this red dot means that you already have the idea that this red dot's not going to work when you need it. Buy a good red dot, train properly, train frequently, and you're going to find that everything is going to be all right. If you're going into red dot usage with this idea that co-witness is this majorly important thing, chances are red dot usage probably isn't for you. Another thing that I want to touch on before we move forward is cost. Now, people will look at this red dot, they'll look at that red dot, and one of the primary factors that leads them into whatever unit that they choose is the cost of the thing, cost and co-witness. What I see a lot of out there is that people will lean towards a red dot that realistically costs $50 less than one that is considerably better quality, and they'll go for that red dot that costs 50 bucks less. Now, I realize that we're all on a budget. Believe it or not, I personally am on a budget myself. I do have a full-time day job. I work 50, 60 hours a week on top of spending legitimately every moment of my free time working on this YouTube channel. So, I have to watch my money too. $50 for a lot of people can be a big difference. But if you are looking at two different red dots and you have one that's higher quality, one that's lower quality, save a little bit more money and just buy the better red dot. A lot of the people that are out there giving these recommendations on different, budget red dots, they only own, one or two or three, and they're all in that budget range. And they'll make these comments like, oh, I have such and such red dot and it works well for me. The question is like, what are these people really doing with them? You're conceal carrying a couple of days a week for a couple of hours. What's your round count? How many rounds have you put through that gun with that optic on it? Have you ever accidentally dropped it? I have one Hellcat Pro that has a Holosun 407K on it. That gun has almost 30,000 rounds on it. That is my daily carry. I carry it basically every day. It has been accidentally dropped on the optic multiple times. The optic body definitely shows it. It is holding on nice and strong. The thing keeps zero. I change the battery every other year, so I don't have any issues with it not having power when it needs to have power. The buttons function like they're supposed to. It's a solid optic. I run my guns a lot. I run them hard. And so I can tell you that a lot of these more budget-friendly optics, although some people are having good luck with them, they're not that great, and it's better to spend a little bit more money. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should buy a Holosun. I have multiple different brands. What I'm saying is don't buy the cheaper optic, but also nobody really needs a Trijicon RMR. Maybe not nobody. The vast majority of people that are going to use a red dot on their pistol definitely do not need to spend the money on a Trijicon. If what you're putting on your gun is in that $200 range, good luck with that. You're gonna need that co-witness after all. I am sure that I missed plenty of objections in there. It's a little cold. My hands are just freezing today. Let's go ahead and just move on to the training aspect, because I think that's the most important thing in the video. Basically, the best way to get from using these old iron sights into using a red dot is going to be dry fire practice. Now, there are two really good ways to dry fire practice. One is going to be free, which I love because ultimately I'm pretty cheap. The other one is going to cost you at minimum right about $100. Now, when I dry fire practice at home, what I do is I actually took this sticky note off the wall in my office to bring out here. I just have a high vis sticky note, and this has a 1-inch circle sticker tacked onto it, and this is my target. I have two of these set up in my house. One is in my office, and that one is going to be, you know, typical self-defense ranges, which is going to be, you know, inside of the 10-foot range. The other one I have posted up in my living room. It is over by my TV. And with that one, what I'll do is I'll stand in my kitchen, living room, kitchen. I'll stand in my kitchen where I'm, I don't know, 15 yards or so out. And I'll do my dry fire there. So I have a combination of close range and more, I don't know, I guess I would say medium range training. I keep these Post-its on the wall right about chest level because, well, that's basically where I'm going to be shooting if there's an emergency situation and I need to use that firearm. First and foremost, when it comes to dry fire, the number one thing is going to be safety. Please, for the love of God, be as safe as humanly possible. Do not have any live ammo anywhere accessible. Be safe. My mag is empty. Gun is empty. Through the process of dry fire practice, I am going to check, recheck, and check again to make sure that there is nothing in this weapon, because I don't want to have any accidents. Typically, I will use a high quality snap cap or training round. I forgot to bring some out here with me today for this video, but go online, find some snap caps where the back portion of those snap caps, the primer area, has like a rubber or plastic primer in it. Those are going to help you make sure that there is no damage to your striker or your firing pin, whatever type of gun that you're using. They're a great training tool. They're incredibly cheap. Pick up a couple of dozen of them because, you know, they really can come in handy, not just with dry fire training, but also while you're out live fire training. Mix one in every now and then into a magazine to just kind of simulate a failure. It's a really good tool to have. So again, because safety is the most important thing, I am going to visually inspect my chamber as well as my magazine. If you're using a snap cap, double check to make sure that it is actually a snap cap and not a live round. We are all good here. I'm going to put my safety on and just holster my weapon. I do have one of these Post-it notes over here on my van, which is parked behind the camera. That's, I don't know, maybe 7 feet away. It doesn't really matter. This is just a demonstration. Starting out, I'm not looking for any type of speed. I'm just trying to get the steps down in order to be proficient. I know that there are a ton of videos online of people training, doing dry fire training where they are moving at lightning speeds, and that's cool and everything, but that's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is build up that muscle memory so that we can proficiently use our red dot system. So my first step is to get my cover garment out of the way. This weather isn't great for this. I'm layered up, but I'm going to remove my cover garment. I'm going to get my grip. I'm going to pull it up and meet my support hand, push out. I have safety on this gun, so I'm going to push out while simultaneously removing my safety. Make sure that my red dot is on target where I want it to be, and take my shot. Super simple. Again, I'm going to just verify that I'm clear over and over and over again. Put my safety back on, reholster. My hands are frozen. Again, same thing. Cover garment, grip, support hand, safety, take my shot. Now, when you do this enough times, what happens is you start to find that when you push out on target, your dot is closer and closer to where it should be. My recommendation, I don't know, every other day, maybe do 20 rounds of dry fire practice. If you're really feeling like, you know, you want to accelerate things, maybe in the morning do 20 rounds, and then in the evening do 20 rounds of dry fire practice. Just whatever you do, make sure that you're safe. Magazine is clear. I've got nothing in there. Safety's on. Back in the holster. I can go ahead and remove my cover garment, get to my grip, support hand, push out, safety, boom, take my shot. Now again, I'm not trying to go fast here. I am trying to acquire that dot and make sure that more often than not, when I push out on target, my gun is where it needs to be. Earlier we talked about, you know, the issue of people not being able to find their dot. And a lot of times what people will do is they will just go to the range with their gun that has a red dot on it. They'll, you know, load up a magazine, they'll put their target out there. Most indoor ranges, I know my local indoor range, will not let you draw from a holster and fire. Whatever, weird rules. They don't want people shooting themselves in the downstairs. But most people will just go out there and they will line up their dot and take their shot and, you know, see how accurate they are. This style of training is really not helpful for, you know, building that muscle memory and getting around searching for that dot. Now, if you're practicing live fire at an indoor range like that, and you know you can't go from the holster to the target because of whatever rules, the best thing to do is to come from this position where you're meeting your support hand and just pressing out and seeing where you're at and then taking a shot. Pressing out, seeing where you're at, and then taking your shot. This is especially effective if you're spending the time at home actually doing your dry fire practice from the holster. So we'll do another round. Empty mag. I didn't even bring ammo out here with me today because dry fire practice is all about safety. So back to the holster, and I'm going to go ahead and clear that cover garment, grab my gun, support hand, press out, take my shot. Now I don't train very often with these double stacked 1911s because I really don't carry them very often. They're bulky, they're heavy. I love shooting them, but you know, ultimately I carry my Hellcat Pro because it's thin, it's lightweight, it's more comfortable to carry. So when I'm dry fire practicing with a gun like this, like a 2011, it tends to be a little clunky and a little quirky because honestly, I'm not training enough with this with the dry fire, and I know that I should. I think everybody should, but I still do really well with presenting this thing on target and that dot being basically where it needs to be. Realistically, you can do the same thing with iron sights. Using iron sights, it's very similar. Building muscle memory for your iron sights is important. That is going to speed up your usage of the iron sights, but ultimately you still have to change your focal plane multiple times when using those iron sights in order to, you know, really work them the way that they're supposed to be worked. All right, so training technique number 2, and unless you have been living under a rock or in a cave, you have already heard about the Mantis system. Most of the YouTubers out there have talked about these. I have talked about them many times in the past, and I will leave a link down below if you want more information about these. Now, Mantis has 3 different tiers, I guess. I don't know what the bottom one is called, but that one's 99 bucks. You have the X3, which I want to say is like 160 or 170. Then you have the X10 Elite, which is the one that I have. That is the top of the line model, quite a bit more expensive. It's like $200 or $250. I think that for most people, that's overkill. You probably don't need it. The $99 option is strictly DryFire. I think for most people, that's going to be enough. The X3, the middle tier, that is going to be DryFire as well as live fire with pistols and rifles. This one here, the X10 Elite, the top of the line model, is excuse me, DryFire, live fire with rifles and pistols, as well as shotguns, and if you're into archery, you can use it as a training tool for archery as well. Now, the Mantis system is essentially this little doodad here. It's got an accelerometer in it that records data for movement. It does come with this little rail adapter that double-sided tapes on the bottom of a magazine, or will go ahead and go onto the rail of your gun. When it comes to dry fire practice, this is the way to go. You just put this rail piece on a magazine, and then you can insert it in the gun. You can still use your holster to go ahead and draw and fire. Realistically, like I said, the $99 option or the mid-tier X3 is the way to go. How this works is you have an app on your phone. The app gives you all kinds of different drills that you can run to help you get better using your gun. These drills range from holster draw analysis to there's a shot timer. Let's see, there's a benchmark test. There's, Jesus, I don't know, 15 different drills here, as well as different courses to help you kind of speed up and accelerate your proficiency with your firearm. Now, primarily, I will use this Mantis system when I'm out here trying to record recoil with different firearms. So it's a really helpful tool with that. But the holster draw analysis gives us the ability to measure every step of the holster draw. It tells us how much time it takes to remove the gun from the holster. It tells us how much time it takes to get out on target. It tells us how much time it takes from the moment that you're on target till when you actually pull the trigger. It also gives us a cool little graph that shows you the actual motion that your pistol makes while you're moving. Now, this is incredibly helpful if you're having a hard time finding that dot. You're going to actually see a visual representation on the screen of the movement that you're making when you're drawing that firearm. You can actually get in there and analyze the movements that you're making and be able to see how you can improve on your draw, which is going to help you be able to get out there more efficiently and be on target. Now, unfortunately, last night when I got prepped to come out here today to do this video, I charged up my camera, my spare batteries, my microphone set, everything except my Mantis. So the battery on this bad boy is dead, but I will flash some screenshots up somewhere of the data that's retrieved from that. When I get home today, I'll go ahead and charge this unit up. I'll do a few rounds of holster draw analysis and I'll throw that up there. Okay, so I did go home and do some holster draw analysis. Feel free to pause at any time and read through all this and just kind of look at the numbers to see how this graphing works. Mind you, this holster draw stuff was done with one of my 2011s that I don't really frequently train with. And I'm not really trying to go real fast with this. This is just kind of getting used to drawing and presenting the firearm and having the dot where it's supposed to be. Now, once you're all done with your dry fire practice, you can head over this screen and you can actually watch the movement of your pistol as you draw, present on target, and take your shot. We'll just play through this at regular speed. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewind that. Over here, we have the moment that the shot timer goes off, and here is where I grip my gun, and I go ahead and draw it out. That's the point right here where I meet my support hand, and I'm coming up. This blue spot, this is where the gun goes horizontal, barrel forward, and we're bringing it up to the target. I overshot it. This right here is the edge of that post-it note. Now the post-it note is 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So that's not good, but it's also not horrible. So I had to adjust and bring it down. The brown indicates that you're on your target. Brought it down, and I'm all over the place because I don't train with this gun enough. And boom, I take my shot. And the trigger on that gun sucks, so it's moving quite a bit. Number 9 here is another really good example. The shot timer goes off. I grip the gun. I draw it. Right there is where I meet my support hand. Bringing it up. Barrel forward. Bring it up. I overshot it by quite a bit. Had to correct. This brown here, this is basically the top edge of that post-it note. Bring it back down. And right here, I'm in that 1-inch circle. And I take my shot. Now, by looking at this movement, I can tell that obviously I'm drawing and I'm presenting high. So this is something that I need to work on with this particular gun, is that most of the time when I'm drawing and I'm presenting it on target, I am a little bit high. Of course, as you do these exercises more and more, the smoother that all this will be and the closer you'll get it to actually having it dialed in. Realistically, I cannot say enough good stuff about the Mantis system. I think that investing in it can really help as far as accelerating your dry fire training as well as live fire training. I like that it has so many different drills that you can run. It's versatile. Not only can you use it on a magazine like this one, but also you can clip it onto a rail and use it that way as well. One drawback to using it on the magazine, as you can see, it is kind of bulky. It stands out quite a bit. So when it comes to doing dry fire training like this, where you have a cover garment to get out of the way, this can get snagged on your clothing. But the double-sided tape that this rail section comes with, it actually holds on really well. Depending on where you place this rail on your magazine, you can position it so that you're getting optimal performance out of it. I haven't had an issue where, drawing my weapon has ripped this thing off of here, so I don't really see that happening. The other thing is, if you're using multiple guns with this system, you can go ahead and order a section of rail from like Amazon and cut sections out of it to be able to put on different guns. So I have one dedicated magazine for my double stack 1911s that I have a rail section glued to. I have one for my Smith & Wesson M&Ps. I have one for my Hellcat Pros. I have a bunch of magazines set up with these rails so that I can train with multiple different firearms with the Mantis system. Now, whether you use a Mantis for your dry fire or you're just doing it the free way and putting a target on the other side of the wall and doing your, draw percent firearm and take a shot. The more that you do those exercises, the better that you're going to get at using a red dot. If what you're doing is just going to the range and using live ammo, getting used to using a red dot is going to take a lot more time, a lot more effort, and a lot more money. So on the one hand, training for free with DryFire practice is great. Training with a Mantis for $99 for the DryFire version could potentially really be worth it. Look, the bottom line is this: technology changes, and I don't think that iron sights are ever going to be necessarily obsolete, but we've come a long way from the invention of firearms to where we're at right now. We've come a long way from the first edition of red dot sighting systems to where we are right now. 5 or 6 years ago, if you wanted to put a red dot on a gun, chances are you were going to have to take the gun that you own, send it off, have the slide milled to accept a red dot. That would cost you money. And then on top of that, you would have to spend several $100s on a dot to go ahead and mount to it. These days though, basically every gun that's out there has an optics ready model. Because the market for red dots is kind of so flooded by different manufacturers, the price of these things has been driven way down. The durability of them has gone up. Battery life is just incredible on these things. And for all the people that want to say that micro red dot systems are just a fad and, a few years down the road, people are just gonna, go right back to iron sights, I hate to tell you this, that's not happening. Ultimately, a red dot is superior to iron sights in basically every way you can think of. If you take the time to learn that red dot and to get good with it, it is going to serve you extremely well. You're going to find that it is fast, it's accurate, and it's going to last you a long time if you buy a good quality red dot. Whether you are new to micro red dot systems or whether you have been using them for some time now, the best thing that you can possibly do is just train with them regularly. Not once a month, but I'd say every other day or so. Get in there and do some dry fire practice, and you're going to find really quickly that you're going to get very good with that sighting system. I guess that's it. That's all I got today. It's a little bit cold out here. I'm going to head back to the house. I'm going to charge up that Mantis system. I'm going to get a little bit of holster draw analysis in and start editing footage. I really appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to head down below in the description. Check out the links. You know what? I will see you back here real soon.